Good morning. Welcome to Unity Spiritual Center of Lansing, Unity on Demand, brought to you by Coronavirus 19. We are on demand so that we can practice the stay-at-home orders and help you to practice stay-at-home orders too, while still staying connected spiritually, energetically together. I wanted to start out this morning in honor of Earth because it is the 50th anniversary of Earth Day on Wednesday. And I'm going to begin with a poem by James Philip Freeman, Unity's Poet Laureate. And James wrote, "The lake looked at the mountain and thought, 'Oh, fortunate mountain, rising so high, well, I must lie so low. You look far out across the world and take part in many interesting happenings. Well, I can only lie still. How I wish I were a mountain.' And the mountain looked at the lake and thought, 'Oh, fortunate lake, lying so close to warm-breasted earth, while I loom here, craggy, cold, and uncomfortable. You are always so peaceful, while I am constantly having to battle howling storm and blazing sun. How I wish I were a lake.' All the time, quietly, the mountain was coming down in silver streams to run into the lake, and the lake was rising as silver mist to fall as snow upon the mountain." Isn't that the way it is? We wish we were something we weren't, when in truth we have a lot of work to do just being who we are. So I wanted to start out this morning with some music from Daniel Naiman, one of my favorite songs. It's from his Water album, and it's called "I Want to Be Like Water." So we will share this here.
I've seen my share of struggle when I thought that I knew best, when I've sailed through a storm instead of stopping to rest. And it always seems the hardest when I made up my stubborn mind. Well, I'm changing my ways this time. Wanna be like water coming down a mountain into shadowy canyons, flowing from pool to stream. Wanna be like water, head uphill no more. I am bound for the sea. Have you ever seen an eagle head straight into the wind? He doesn't pick a fight, he spreads his wings and just gives in. And in the end he always makes it home just fine. I guess he knows that every storm subsides.
Wanna be like
Wanna
water.
be like water,
Running down the
coming down a mountain into shadowy canyons, flowing from pool to stream.
Wanna be like water.
Water, head uphill no more. I am bound for the sea. I'll let nature take its course. No more thinking that I know where this river's meant to go. I have railed against the stars for the cards that I've been dealt, for the lottery I've never won, for the heartache that I've felt. But it always seems when I let go of expectation and regret, life has plenty of surprises for me, yeah. I wanna be like water coming down a mountain into shadowy canyons, flowing from pool to stream. Wanna be like water, head uphill no more. I am bound for the sea. Wanna be like water coming down a mountain into shadowy canyons, flowing from pool to stream. Wanna be like water, head uphill no more. I am bound for the sea.
Thank you, Daniel. It's very gracious of our New Thought musicians to share their music videos with us during this time. couple weeks ago, Doug Eagle sent me a piece that I found quite thought-provoking, so I thought I'd share that with you this morning. Just continue on the slideshow here. It went like this. It said, we fell asleep in one world and woke up in another. Boy, doesn't it feel like that. Suddenly, Disney is out of magic. Paris is no longer romantic. New York doesn't stand up anymore. The Chinese wall is no longer a fortress, and Mecca is empty. Hugs and kisses suddenly become weapons, and not visiting parents and friends become an act of love. Suddenly you realize that power, beauty, and money are worthless, and that you can't get the oxygen you're fighting for. The world continues its life, and is beautiful. It only puts humans in cages. I think it's sending us a message. You are not necessary. The air, earth, water, and sky without you are fine. When you come back, remember that you are my guest, not my masters. That we truly are guests on this beautiful blue planet, this beautiful blue marble in the middle of this incredible universe. And the impact that us stopping commerce and stopping travel and stopping making a major mess out there has shown up in so many ways. You may have read about these. The Himalayas now are visible, where before they have been clouded by all the pollution in the air. In Los Angeles, again, the mountains are visible, and you can actually see the city when so many times the smog has been so heavy, it just wasn't possible to have this magnificent view. In China, look at the difference in the air quality. Just to walk down the street, many people wore masks all the time just to protect their lungs. And look at it now, literally blue skies moving through the place. And then you may have heard the stories about the canals in Venice, that because there's not the water traffic way, it's not storing up the sludge and stuff on the bottom, so the water is very clear. And in the different waterways around there, they're actually seeing the dolphins appearing. Just totally magnificent change of pace for us. There was a friend of mine who's a blogger, and she had talked with an animal communicator a while back. And in her article, she had shared that she had communicated with the virus, the coronavirus, to see what message it had for us. And she said that the virus said, she asked the virus, why are you infecting the world so aggressively? And the virus responded, you're thinking of us as your enemy. We're not. We consider ourselves to be your cleaners. And in many ways, the world is a little bit cleaner since we have been staying at home and being less active, less commercial perhaps. And that really brings me to Earth Day and a quote that I saw on Facebook the other day. It was what's called a meme. And it says, so you don't think you have the resources and technology to clean up the environment. Here's a virus. Have patience. I have patience. Yes. Well, let's stop the sharing there. So the Bible has some ecologic in it, ecological logic, ways of thinking. And in the Bible, as it starts out, it says, in the beginning, God created the heaven and the earth and all the multitudes. And God gave man dominion over the fish and the birds and every living thing that moves. And God said that it was good. Well, that was all nice and good, but what happened next? We were given dominion over this magnificent planet. What happens next? For me, it's about going beyond the back cover of the Bible or any other Holy Scripture or inspirational book that we might be reading. Because when we were given dominion, something happened within us that thought that we had power over it, as opposed to finding ways to live in harmony with it, to really use the resources in ways that were meaningful and rich, and also in a symbiotic relationship, so that what we did benefited others, other living creatures on this planet, and the living creatures in turn benefit us. Well, 50 years ago, Art Buchwald, some of you may remember him, he wrote a little follow-up to the creation story. He said, a man created the plastic bag and the tin and aluminum can and the cellophane wrapper and the paper plate. And this was good because a man could then take his automobile, buy all his food in one place, And he could save that which was good to eat in the refrigerator and throw away that which had no further use. And soon the earth was covered with plastic bags and aluminum cans and paper plates and disposable bottles, and there was nowhere to sit down or walk. And man shook his head and cried, "Look at this god-awful mess." Well, boy, it has not changed much since then. For sure, we know that there is a gigantic plastic island floating in the Pacific, bigger than Texas, from all of our trash that we have just let go. And every time I think about earthquake care, I think about Chief Seattle. He shared such wise wisdom in his ways. And he wrote this. He said, "We were taught under the old ethic that man's business on this earth was to look out for himself. That was the ethic of the jungle, the ethic of the wild beast. Take care of yourself no matter what may become of your fellow man." Thousands of years ago, this question was asked. Am I my brother's keeper? Am I my brother's keeper? Really? Well, that question has never been answered in any way that's satisfactory to civilized society. And today we understand that we are interlinked, interdependent. Humankind has not woven the web of life. We are but one thread of it. Whatever we do to the web, we do to ourselves. All things are bound together. All things connect. Am I my brother's keeper? Jesus told a story of the Good Samaritan. A man was on his way to another city when he was beaten up and robbed and left broken, torn, half-clothed in a ditch. And as people walked by on this busy road, they ignored him. A priest walked by, a rabbi walked by, saw him lying there and walked to the other side of the street. A young couple walked by and they too walked to the other side, just ignored this man, this heaped up mess that was laying in the gutter, probably passing judgment, thinking the worst of him. And then finally a Samaritan came by. And in those days, a Samaritan was an enemy of the Jewish people. But it was a Samaritan who finally stopped and looked at the man and saw that he was hurt and helped him to an inn and left money there for the innkeeper to take care of him until he healed. We know today that there is no such thing as them or us, that we are each other's brothers. We are each other's keepers. In Jesus' teachings, he really summed it all up with some very simple guidelines, not a list of commandments, a list of things to do and don't. But he said that he came to fulfill the law, and that the law was this: to love God with all your heart, all your soul, and all your mind, and to love your neighbor as yourself. Well, with this new law, it really supersedes this question of, I'm my brother's keeper, because we know the answer to that. But the question then becomes, how do we love God? How do we love ourselves? And how do we love our neighbors, especially in a world that is so interconnected? We need to start always at home, to start with ourselves, for we can never love anybody or love God more than we can find love for ourselves. The prophet Hafiz says that God keeps opening inside of me. God keeps opening inside of me. I love that. And that opening, little by little, we awaken to what we really are, who we really are, what we were made of, because we're made of God stuff. There's only one power and one presence, God the good, and that includes us. We are unique. We are irreplaceable. We are non-repeatable in this world. The world would absolutely not be the same without each and every one of us. The work, though, was not that just we were made, but it's continual work in process. We talk of God as creation, creator. It's an ongoing process. It never has a final endpoint. It's that idea of life living into itself over and over and over again. And so we really find ourselves in a life journey asking our authentic self, our soul self, who it is that we've come here to be. Because that is where we find the love for ourselves, by answering that inner call, that inner passion. The Buddha said that our work is simply to discover ourselves, and then with all our heart, give ourselves to ourselves, finding that thing that we are passionate about, finding that that thing, that direction, that kindness within us. Success is not about greatness. Success is about being that authentic self, to be in alignment with our values, with our expression of love, day in and day out, moment by moment. Sometimes we're not as skilled as others, but to always go back to that point of loving God with all our heart, all our soul, all our mind, and our neighbor as ourselves. So as we learn to love ourselves, as we learn to expand that connection that we have with God, and we expand it through appreciation, we expand it through a deeper spiritual understanding of each other, we expand it through listening, we expand it through patience as we sit in this ever-changing world, this world that has turned itself upside down in the last 30 days. So who is our neighbor? As I told you in the Good Samaritan, it's not necessarily those that we consider our friends, or even those we consider our enemies. Our neighbor is whoever is next to us. And we know now that there is really, it's not about distance. It is about whoever is sharing this planet with us in these days. You know, in the Old Testament, it really represents our beginning faith, our faith when it's sometimes blind, that we just do things because we're told it's the right thing to do. But as we grow in understanding into a New Testament type of faith, where it's something that we feel in our heart, feel that divine wisdom within us, the question really evolves from, am I my brother's keeper? Who is my neighbor? Who is my brother? To who is not my neighbor? Who is not my brother? Finding a reason why this person is not part of the oneness. It is an impossible, possible thing to find, because we know that that is a truth, this truth of our oneness, and that we all exist in this gigantic sense of race consciousness, of human race, of the life race consciousness, of all living things on this planet. The grass that's coming up, the birds that are singing so brilliantly these days, and each and every one of us, no matter where we may live, no matter what ideas we may hold to, our hearts beat as one in truth. This is the pulse of the universe. Our journey is really about releasing that which is toxic, that which is no longer serving not only others, but it's not serving ourselves. It cannot serve us if it's not serving others. So we one by one find those things that are ours to release. And though it may seem like what we can do is so minimal, how can it possibly impact a change in the world? In truth, it is only us doing those tiny things, one thing at a time, that brings about a change. And to just exemplify this a little bit more, I'd like to share with you a South American fable called The Story of the Hummingbird. I'm going to bring this up on the screen. Here we go. I'll start this.
Here is the story of the great forest that caught on fire. The terrible fire raged and burned. All of the animals were afraid and fled from their homes. The elephant and the tiger, the beaver and the bear all ran, and above them the birds flew in a panic. They huddled at the edge of the forest and watched. All of the creatures gathered, except one. Only Dukduktium, the little hummingbird, would not abandon the forest. Dukduktium flew quickly to the stream. She picked up a single drop of water in her beak. Dukduktium flew back and dropped the water on the fire. Again, she flew to the stream and brought back another drop, and so she continued, back and forth, back and forth. The other animals watched Dukduktium's tiny body fly against the enormous fire, and they were frightened. They called out to the little hummingbird, warning her of the dangers of the smoke and the heat. "What can I do?" sobbed the rabbit. "This fire is much too hot. There's too much smoke," howled the wolf. "My wings will burn. My beak is too small," cried the owl. But the little hummingbird persisted. She flew to and fro, picking up more water and dropping it, bead by bead, onto the burning forest. forest. Finally, the big bear said, "Little Dukduktium, what are you doing?" Without stopping, Dukduktium looked down at all of the animals. She said, "I'm doing what I can."
I'm doing what I can, one drop at a time. So too, each of us can do what we can, one drop at a time. There's a movie out a long time ago called City Slickers. And in it, the head cowboy is telling these city slickers that there's only one, secret to life is one thing. Secret to life is one thing. And at the end, they find out that that one thing is not a universal one thing. It's whatever that one thing is for each of them, that thing that they are passionate about, that thing that means something to them. That is the one thing. So just like the hummingbird, each one of us is really called upon, challenged to find that one thing that we can do to support our neighbor, to support ourselves, and in doing so, supporting this entire planet. So as a spiritual practice for this week, I'll see if I can get the screen back up here. There we go. Oh, wants to play that again. Okay. There we go. There's the City Slickers. Find out what the one thing you can do is do it. I like the phrase, instead of, I've heard about walking upon the earth lightly, but walking upon the earth rightly, finding those things that we can do to make our stay on this planet one that leaves it in a better place than when we landed on it. So as a spiritual practice this week, I invite you to make a one-day pledge. Could you go one day with creating no garbage? And boy, as I've thought about this, the garbage I create in a day, I'm going to have to give a release to at least things that I can recycle, because I know all my animal food comes in cans, so I can rinse them out and recycle them. But can you make it through one day without creating any garbage? And in doing so, maybe recognize you wouldn't put garbage in something that was divine and holy. In truth, this planet is divine and holy. Well, now we're going to take a moment to celebrate our prosperity. And as we gather together today, just knowing that no matter whatever situation we are in, that there are those around this planet right now that do not have a roof over our heads, do not have food in their refrigerators, do not have maybe even internet that they can get entertainment and have some stimulation or connect with each other on Zoom or Facebook, whatever that might be, that we truly are so blessed. And I have to say, on behalf of Unity Spiritual Center of Lansing, I am so grateful for the gifts that have been flowing into this ministry to keep us going, to pay for the rent and to pay for the salaries and all the various expenses that come with running a ministry. And that it is just heartwarming to know how much this ministry means to you and how much you are willing to support it. So I invite you to take in your hands today, even if it's symbolic, that gift that you're willing to share. That gift that really becomes a symbol of all the blessings that have flowed into your life. As we take that gift in our hand, perhaps hold our hands to our heart as we bless our gifts together as an acknowledgement that there is only one planet, one consciousness, one presence that we call God, that we are each other's neighbor in the deepest sense of that meaning. And so we bless our gifts together. Divine love through me blesses and multiplies all that I am, all that I have, all that I give, and all that I receive. I praise, give thanks, and am glad. And so it is. Thank you. Well, that's not all, folks. Unity on Demand continues. Part 3 is Empty Hands. It's a meditation focusing on Earth Day and music by Daniel Nemeth, Empty Hands. So I hope you'll join us for that part of this Sunday experience. Thank you.